evening, and thank you for tuning in to another week with Fathers Who Care. And as always, it's our pleasure to come back to you. We want to thank First Can TV, some of our friends over there, Amari, Sylvia, David, all of the folks over there who continue to make this broadcast possible. And of course, we want to thank our young people up in there who's learning how to run the control panels, and some of our elder guestmen, some of our leaders, mentors, and outreach workers, and some of the folks who are making it easier for these young people to get around the city of Chicago, but also who's empowering these young people to be the best that they can be. So yes, we're still on the field doing it. We're still empowering these young people. Out of all of these years, we're still pushing to get these young folks actively involved. And so, you know, we at Fathers Who Care strongly believe that any man that's physically capable can make a baby, but it takes a real man to be a father. We're talking about investing in a child's lifestyle, investing in a child's state of mind, peace of mind, public safety, making sure the environment around that child is conducive for ongoing learning. And we believe that we like to continue to believe that those folks that we are simulating, that we are working with, are doing just as much as we are, if not more. And we do believe that. But here we want to also dispel those negative myths about fathers in the lives of that. Fathers do care, and we're committed to doing just that. We're committed to making sure that those that we are fathers over and our surrogate children have the options and opportunities to better their lives, to improve the quality of life. And most importantly, we're working feverishly to reduce underage drinking, substance abuse, and of course, senseless violence on the west side of Chicago. And so we're happy this evening to be talking about how can we bridge the gaps between our elders, our police, and our community. Most importantly, how can we bridge the gap between the intergenerational gap between our young people and our elders, our policemen, and those who are part of this different sectors. So what we said we would do, we say we would get in touch with our alderman, because we know that our alderman has been really committed to the empowerment of our young people. We know that he sits on various different committees, and he's actively involved. He's a man of faith, purpose, on a mission to engage and enlighten the least of them. Our alderman is a father, he's a husband, he's a community servant for social change. He's a former Marine, a former Cook County Deputy Sheriff, a former Sergeant of the Chicago Police Department, and one of the founding, now I want to mention also that you're the chairman of the council's Committee on Public Safety.
That's correct.
And he's also the founding chairman, I would say, or founding partner of Nexus and Teleferro Law Groups.
That's correct.
So that means that he's really committed to empowering folks. You're also committed to providing legal assistance in family law cases.
That's correct.
Where folks may be in need of some support. And, you know, he want to make sure that legal assistance is affordable.
Yes, indeed.
And that you have access. Would that be fair?
That's very fair. And in fact, I've spent quite a few years providing legal services for at no cost for folks who can't afford it.
So that means pro bono.
Yes.
So that means he's been doing some pro bono work for those who don't have the resources to, and that's important.
It is.
It's really important for folks who are afforded the opportunity to quality legal advice and assistance, right?
That's correct.
So let's do this here. Let's get to the show, if that's okay with you. And we want to use this show to talk about what we can do to bridge some of these gaps in the community between the police and the community. I need to put it out there first that we're not condoning violence anywhere.
Absolutely.
But also, I want to put it out there that I don't have any axe to grind with the police department. I'm actually pro relationship building with the police department. That's why we feverishly work as hard as we do to bridge the gap between the superintendent and his brass officers and the community. And I'm pro that we need police in our community, because if we didn't, it would be the OK Corral. And there would be no safety. But I want to also condemn police brutality. I want to condemn openly unnecessary, senseless violence upon our people. And I want to condemn, I don't want to go personal with nobody against this, but I have my opinion. I'm kind of torn right now about what happened to Tyrese Nichols.
Yes.
I mean, you have to. If you don't have a heart, there's something wrong with you. Now, it's sad, but police brutality is police brutality by whoever it is. All right. So let's talk about that. How can we bridge the gap, Alderman? And that's what we want to talk about. How to bridge the gap between the police and the community. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
Is that an open conversation for you?
That's definitely an open conversation.
Okay, so let's do this before we get there. I want to know, Chris, who is Chris? I know your name is Chris. Is that your name, Chris?
It is Christopher.
I was going to have some fun with you. Is that right?
It's Christopher, but it's Chris to everyone, but only Christopher when I'm in trouble.
Okay, it's Christopher Teleferro, right? For those who don't know, but most of us in the neighborhood call him Alderman, or we call him Chris, or we call him Alderman, a committee man. Some folks may call him attorney. That's a lot. But let's do this. I want to know what motivates Christopher Teleferro. What motivates you?
I'd say there's a few things that motivate me, and these are things that I take back with me from when I was a young child. I think I'm very impassioned about people, and I've learned that from my mother, who grew up throughout my formative years. My mom was a single mother of 5 boys, and so I learned a lot during that time frame, and developed from that a deep care for people. And then my mom married my stepfather, who I will always call my dad. And he taught me compassion and love as well. As I say, she was a single mother with 5 boys.
Right.
And he took us into his home. He loved my mom and loved us equally. And I think I developed my love for people through that. But from a non-professional basis, I grew up in a very small town called Smithfield. I believe at the time when I left, it was about 3,000 people, but it's the country. And I grew up with a passion for fishing, art, and these are things that I continue to pursue today. I love to fish whenever I get an opportunity, but I also love art. I love painting and viewing visual and any type of art form I have a passion for. So outside of being an alderman or an attorney or a police officer or a deputy sheriff or Marine or National Guardsman, there's that inner Chris that loves and have a deep passion for the arts and people.
Okay. So we got some of the things that motivates you. So now let's ask this question. What is your purpose for existing?
To be the best person that I can be. God put me here for so many reasons, and not one defined reason. I think God wants me to be a great husband and a great father to my children, a great husband to my wife. But I think most important, God has given me a heart of compassion.
Okay.
And I think my being right now is to help people. And I've had that, if you look at everything I've done from the time I was 17 years old, it's been involved with public service and helping people. And I still have that passion, and it's that fire inside of me that pushes me to the next day, because if I could help get someone's lights turned on or their gas turned on, that's so satisfying.
Okay.
If I could help someone with their rent or whatever the case may be and providing city resources, that's what fuels my next day.
Okay. So here's a question that's real meaningful to me. Why is it important for us to make sure that our community, particularly our young people who are old enough to be civically engaged, why is it important for young people to vote? Why is it important for young people to be civically engaged in their community?
I think they are, it's not even a guess or a thing. They are our next leaders. And I think the younger they become involved in civic-minded activities, the more engaged they will and the more impassioned they will be to become leaders. And to look at themselves as, I can take this position and do this position. I can be the next alderman or the next mayor. So it's important for them to get civically engaged because of that and many other reasons. But we do, and when you and I get to a point where we're walking around with canes and we're sitting in our recliners, the young leaders that are getting involved today will be the leaders of our future.
And I think it's important, Alderman, to do that work.
It is.
I mean, you can attest to the fact that, I love what I do. I've been doing it a long time. It ain't always been about a dollar for me. It's always been about sharing with the young people, passing the baton, if you would.
Yes.
It's always being able to provide these young people with additional options. And so I get so much joy and sense of purpose out of that. Don't get me wrong. I do know it's been some days when, I'll be like, wow.
Yeah.
But somebody got to do it, right? So I'm thankful to have the opportunity to be that light in darkness to some of these young people, but to also give these young people an opportunity to understand that they can be whatever they want to be.
Right.
And we
I
just
agree.
have to be committed enough to provide them with those options. But moving on down the road, I want to get to the question that's pressing all over the nation, right? And that question is, how can we bridge the gap between the community and the police?
I think the greatest thing we could do is become engaged. Oftentimes we sit back outside of being on the front line when it comes down to our police. But I think the best way to bridge that gap is to get an understanding of what police do and who they are, and then getting involved in the community. But being very engaged, and we have a lot of folks throughout the 29th Ward that pay particular attention to getting involved with the police. Oftentimes going to CAPS meeting or community meetings where the police will be engaged, but not necessarily just with crime. Getting engaged in the festive activities that are hosted by our police department and hosted in the community. But the best way to bridge is engagement.
And there's an activity that's going on now in all of the districts. The districts are now electing council.
Yes.
District council members, right? Initially, they had groups. There was the ambassadors in each district. Now it's district council members. What's the premise behind that?
Well, it's to get folks engaged and to have an elected voice from the community that engages with the police. And so we will now have 3 individuals from each police district that's elected by the people in the areas in which that police district serve to act as their representative with regard to matters of policing in the city of Chicago and in their communities.
So, meaning they would be elected, correct? By their peers or the people in the community, right?
That's correct.
And they would have the powers to do what again?
Well, one of them, their specific powers, which I am glad to see we were able to successfully move through City Council, is they will select the commissioners that will serve as the Community Commission on Public Safety and Accountability, which I like to shorten up to say it's a police commission.
Okay.
One person from that group will be elected to serve in that capacity and putting together those 14 representatives that will be presented to the mayor for selection.
Is it a paid position?
It is. It's a stipend of $500 a month.
Okay. And it's relatively just a service.
It is, and they will be very much engaged with the police department, the commanders in each district, the CAPS office, the community policing office, as well as our DCOs, district coordinated officers. Okay.
So, what is the mission behind the public safety?
Okay, the committee I chair. I do chair. I was appointed by the council to lead the Committee on Public Safety. And our primary responsibility is all legislative matters that involves our Chicago Police Department, Fire Department, Offices of Emergency Management and Communication, which we call our 911 Center,
right?
As well as the Police Board and Civilian Office of Police Accountability, COPA, as well as all city emergencies. So it's a very huge responsibility, and the members on the committee have served it very well. But we are responsible for all legislative matters and all matters that arise with regard to the police, to include resolutions that may be presented about our police and ordinances that may be presented about our public safety offices.
Well, I believe that folks should have the autonomy to be actively involved in their community. I believe in block clubs. I believe in people coming together to empower each other. I believe in the norms and values of our our parents and our parents' parents when we used to be concerned about what's going on the block.
Right.
When we used to be, if you did something wrong on the block, you didn't get away. Everybody knew what you was doing.
And your mom knew before you got home.
And the mom knew before, and seriously,
Yes.
and your mom knew before you got home. And your mom condoned people who cared about you or community members to kind of help discipline you if you was doing something out there.
Yes.
What happened to the community while we're not still sharing those norms and values in our neighborhood?
I think to some degree we still do. I think when we are on a block or in a neighborhood where we've gotten to know one another and we know each other very well, to that degree we still have those same values. But a lot of us have gotten away from it because we may not know the people on our block. We are more inclusive than being exclusive on our blocks. And so the more we can become inclusive and get to know our neighbors and share times with our neighbors, inviting them to our backyards and inviting them inside the homes, the more that concept becomes prevalent in our neighborhoods. And it's almost that concept that where we've heard, it takes a village or a community to raise a child. And yeah, you're right, we've gotten away from that because it was more sort of cliche saying after, we've gotten away from it. And so I would love to get back to that though. But it's hard work because we're so individualized now in our families and in our activities.
Yeah, and there's so many individuals now in the community who are really trying to ascertain what is the state of things that's going on the west side of Chicago. Folks are, every time you turn around, there's something going on, but there's something going on everywhere. But folks are afraid these days. Folks are concerned about the different legislation that's being proposed. Folks are talking about the Safety T Act, and folks thinking that it's getting ready to be mass crime in the community. So folks are really confused. And then, right now there are so many young people who are actively engaged in carjacking and all of these other negative behaviors. Why do you think there's such an influx of senseless violence or an influx of negativity going on the west side of Chicago? If, in fact, there is.
I think there is. We have, as you said, we have more young folks that are taking up challenges that they see on social media that put them in harm's way, whether those are physically related challenges to, just an old example that I recall was swallowing cinnamon. It's almost as if our crowd, our young men and women are taking up these challenges just to see if they can accomplish it. One of the latest being the Kia and Hyundai challenge, where they have found that it's easy to steal those certain models of those vehicles in certain years, that they've taken up that charge and say, let's go see if I can do it. And once you do it once, it becomes easier to do it again and again and again.
And they're doing it.
And so I think there's so many different factors that have come about that you and I, during our generation, did not have. We played outside a lot. We didn't have a lot of technology back then, to whereby we spent a lot of time on that particular piece of technology. But I think from an overall perspective, though, I do see a great vision for the west side of Chicago. I see us being a growing community, and I won't talk too long on it. But I just want to say the activities that we're putting together on the west side of Chicago. Now, you got to recall, we went from a community that was barely invested in to a community that I see, it's almost like a spring flower. It's budding and it's flourishing. We have youth activities going on. We have economic development going on. We have community development going on, not just in my ward, but all on the west side of Chicago, providing more affordable housing for families. And so when we have these things and we get our young adults engaged in it, we can have a better west side of Chicago. And that's what I see. I see it happening in real time.
No, I understand that you are running again for alderman. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
So tell us, what are the duties and the term of an alderman?
I think and someone asked me this question when I was running in 2015, and I didn't know the exact answer. They asked me, what is an alderman? What is an alderman to?
Yeah, okay.
And I thought an alderman, by title itself and definition of its responsibilities, was to serve the community. But we are the legislative representative for the area in which we're elected to serve. That's what the clear definition of an alderman. But we also serve, I believe, in 80% of our task is a liaison between our community and business departments within the city. In other words, when you need a street to be done, we act as a liaison between the resident and street CDOT to get that street done. If you need a cart, we act as a liaison between that resident and the Streets and Sanitation Department, Streets and Sanitation, to get a cart. So I think 80% of what we do is acting as a liaison between our resident and the various city departments to provide those resources and services to our resident. Water, streets and sand, CDOT, you name it.
So do you believe, I know there's been an onslaught of changes on the west side of Chicago, and taxes are going up. Do you agree?
Yes, taxes have gone up on our residents and the business owners. In fact, though, I think there was a report that said that taxes that in the most in need communities have gone down, and so but I do know of several residents, to include my staff member, whose taxes have increased. Property taxes have increased a significant amount.
And why is that? Is that because of the different investments that are coming into the neighborhood, or the tax levies that's been posed to pay for these investments in the community? Or why are the taxes going up for folks for particularly seniors who don't have the resources?
It depends who you ask. I mean, it's, in asking me, I listened to our assessor, and our assessor did a reevaluation of the properties throughout the entire city. And some of them were assessed higher and some were assessed lower. Now, if you remember, if your property is assessed higher, you're going to have a higher tax base. If it's assessed lower, you're going to have a lower tax base. And so our assessor has gone in and reassessed, but at the same time, I think there has to be a balance, and this is where the Cook County Board of Review comes in. There has to be a balance between the property taxes that are assessed to a business and a property tax that's assessed to residents. And if the property tax is assessed to residents or the business is too high, they have to balance out the need of levies. Okay. And so it's so many different confusing answers as to why our property taxes went up in certain communities.
Okay. What can we do, Alderman? Because I really want to go back to this public safety and the state of mind of folks. What can we do collectively as community residents to bring some stability or to help to reduce some of the hardship folks may be experiencing when they come to public safety? How can we get more involved?
I think we have to make sure as family members, as fathers and mothers, is to get engaged in what our children have as their passions. I realized when I was young, my son wanted to play in the NBA. So I would go to the basketball court with him. Now, I didn't play, but I was there to encourage him. I got involved in what he wanted to do. And not only just that, but just sticking with that and staying with that. If we want to keep our children safe, we have to be involved in what they're doing and what they see as their goals and passions in life as well. If that's going to dance recitals, if that's going to musical recitals, if that's going to basketball games or football games or baseball games, we as parents have to, I believe, set the example. Okay. Because they're going to learn from us as they become parents. Okay. And if they see us slipping, they're going to slip as parents as well.
So in the 29th Ward, what do you consider the state of the 29th Ward?
I see us as flourishing. We have over $250 million in economic development and community development going on at the time. But most important, as it relates to our young men and women, we have a better quality of life. And just in my ward alone, we're down to, we had a 50% reduction in crime now. When I first started as Alderman,
They're wrapping
2015,
it up. So when they ask you, if a person is trying to get in touch with your office, who can they call?
they can call me directly there.
And what's the number?
773-237-6460.
One more time on the number, please.
773-237-6460. We'll come by.
No, we can do that too. The time is moving, and I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to hear from the alderman. But the young people is telling us that we need to kind of wrap up for for the show. But we want to also let you know that you need to vote. Your vote matters, and we want to make sure if we're going to try to empower these young people, and these young people can't be what they can't see. So we want to encourage these young folks through various different options. So Alderman, we want to thank you again for all that you do for the community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Rev.
Thank you for looking out for these babies, and that these babies are a priority to in your life. And I'm glad that these young folks are getting a chance to meet you and to greet you and to have an opportunity to rub shoulders with you, because I know you do have a heart for the children. And we want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. God bless you. If you need any information on internship programs, anti-violence program, give us a call at Fathers Who Care. The number is 773-287-5821, or log in to fatherswhocare.org.gov.inc.com. All of those acronyms are sufficient for these numbers. Give us a call, and we'll do our due diligence to get your children actively involved in some creative programming. But remember, we need you to be that support system that we need to help your own children. So don't just send them out there and say, I can't do nothing with them. Hang out with them and come on out and support them as we do some of the activities in the community.
Yes,
so
indeed.
thank you guys for all that you're doing, Alderman. Thank you for your team, for all the work that they're doing. Thank you, CAN TV, for the work that you're doing. And thank you, young people, for all of that. So God bless you. Good night. And we'll see you next week.